Hey, Wide Awake family. If you see this, it's your sign to smash that like button. Yes, you listening right now. That way YouTube shows you more amazing stories like this one. We love you all. Now enjoy the stories. I joined this Facebook group called Women's Safety and Support UK after seeing it shared by someone from my old college. It looked legit. Thousands of members, constant posts about walking home safely, self-defense classes, and women warning each other about creepy encounters. The kind of stuff that makes you feel less alone, especially when you've had weird experiences yourself. I'd just moved into a new flat by myself, so I thought it couldn't hurt to join. The first few days felt normal. I scrolled through people posting about stuff like being followed from the station or getting strange friend requests. Everyone seemed supportive, sharing tips and reassuring each other. I even posted once about a guy who'd stopped his car near me late at night, asking for directions, and how I pretended to be on the phone until he drove off. Within an hour, I got 50 comments telling me I did the right thing. It actually made me feel safer knowing there were so many women like me just trying to look out for each other. Then things got strange. It started with a message from one of the admins. His profile name was Sophie L., but the message didn't sound like something a woman would say. He wrote, "I saw your post earlier. Are you still living near the corner shop by the bus stop?" I never mentioned where I lived. Not even the area. I ignored it at first, thinking it was maybe a glitch or something. But then another admin messaged me the next day saying, "You're smart to carry your keys like that when walking home." That's how I do it too. That's when I started to panic a little. I'd posted a photo in the comments once in my keychain after someone recommended an alarm keyring, but my hand was visible in it, and I remember the background was my hallway. There wasn't anything too identifiable, or so I thought. I went through my posts to check if I'd accidentally shared my location or anything, but I hadn't. I even checked the privacy settings, and everything was on private. I messaged one of the other members who'd commented a lot on my post asking me if she'd ever gotten weird messages from the admins. She said no, but then her account disappeared an hour later. Her name, her comments, everything. Gone like she never existed. That night, I got another message from Sophie. It said, "You shouldn't ignore people who care about your safety." That one made my stomach drop. I clicked on the profile again, and that's when I noticed something off. There were only 3 photos, all uploaded within the same week, all of the same blonde woman standing in front of different cars. The photos looked like they'd been taken from somewhere else, like they were stock images. I reported the account, but Facebook didn't take it down. A few hours later, another admin messaged me from a different name, Tracy M., saying, "We know what building you live in, so don't be scared. We're just making sure you're safe." At that point, I left the group. I thought that'd be it. But my messages didn't stop. They kept coming from random accounts, all new, all with fake-sounding names. One of them sent me a screenshot of my own Facebook profile picture with the caption, "Cute smile." Another sent me a link that looked like a news article, but when I clicked it, it redirected to a page saying, "Welcome back." I immediately closed it, but I think that's when things got worse. 2 days later, I started noticing small changes on my Facebook. Posts I didn't remember liking, messages I hadn't sent. One was to a friend saying, "Everything's fine, I just moved again." I hadn't moved anywhere. Then one morning, I woke up to my phone vibrating nonstop. My mom had called me 8 times. When I answered, she sounded terrified. She said someone had messaged her from my account around 3 a.m. saying I was being followed and needed help. The message had my name and address in it. She called the police, but by the time they came to my flat, I was asleep and had no clue what was going on. The police said maybe my account was hacked, and they advised me to change all my passwords, which I did. I thought that'd be the end of it, but 2 days later, a patrol car came to my flat again. They told me they'd gotten another call from someone claiming to be me, saying there was a man outside my door. They checked the CCTV from the building, and that's when it got creepy. Around 2:40 a.m. that night, a man was actually standing near my building entrance. He didn't try to get in, but he waited there for about 20 minutes before leaving. The officers couldn't tell who he was because he wore a hood and mask, but one thing stood out. He kept checking his phone like he was following directions. After that, I stopped using Facebook for a while. I deleted the app, changed my number, and even moved to a friend's place for a bit. The police took a report but said it might have just been a coincidence. Then about 3 weeks later, I got a call from them asking me to come in. They'd found something during an investigation. Apparently, several women in my area had filed similar complaints, all about being messaged by admins from that same Facebook group. The police traced the group back to two men who lived less than 10 miles from me. They weren't women at all. They'd been running fake women's safety pages for months, pretending to help victims while actually tracking them. They'd hacked into multiple accounts through fake links like the one I clicked. They had spreadsheets of women's names, addresses, and even screenshots from private messages. The police said they'd been using the data to watch women through connected smart devices, doorbell cameras, phones, even smart TVs if they could access them. I felt sick hearing that. They said my name was on one of their lists, marked with a note already located. I can't even describe the feeling of knowing strangers had been watching me without me realizing. I moved out a month later and deactivated every social media account I had. The only reason I'm even sharing this now is because I keep thinking about how many other women might still be in that group, still posting about their daily routines, their favorite coffee spots, the buses they take home, and how someone's probably reading every single one of those posts right now, smiling behind a fake profile picture. I've been looking for a decent home gym set for months. Ever since my local gym closed down, I've been working out using random stuff around my flat, water jugs, backpacks full of books, that sort of thing. One night, while scrolling through Facebook Marketplace, I found this listing that looked perfect. Full dumbbell and weight set, barely used, $150 for everything. The photos looked legit. The guy had them stacked neatly against a garage wall, a bit dusty but in good condition. The seller's name was Dan. His profile seemed normal, a few pictures of a dog, some old posts about football matches, nothing weird. We messaged back and forth for a bit, and he said he could deliver them himself since he had a van. He even offered to help carry them up the stairs to my flat for a small extra fee, which I thought was fair considering the weight. He showed up later that evening, mid-30s maybe, wearing a black hoodie and gloves, said he just didn't want his hands getting dirty from the metal. The boxes he brought in were heavy but not impossible to lift. I paid him in cash and helped him bring the last box inside. He left quick after that, saying he had another drop-off to do before it got dark. At first, everything seemed normal. I unpacked the equipment, set up the bench, and started cleaning the weights. They had a strange texture to them, though. Not rough metal, more like they'd been coated in something. When I tapped one against another, it didn't sound like solid iron. It had this dull, hollow sound, like tapping two thick plastic containers together. I thought maybe they were just cheaper weights, filled with concrete or sand like some budget sets. Still, the sound bugged me. So later that night, I took a small screwdriver and pried at one of the plates near the edge where it had a tiny crack. That's when I noticed the inside wasn't solid at all. There was a layer of metal wrapped around something else. I kept going, peeling it open more, and a small bag fell out. Clear plastic, tightly wrapped. Inside it was cash. Stacks of $20 notes. It looked old, some of the notes faded and crumpled, like they'd been handled a lot. My brain didn't even process what I was seeing at first. I just kept staring at the bag, wondering if it was some kind of prank. I opened another weight, same thing. More bags. Not one or two, but several small bundles of money shoved inside, sealed like they'd been packed professionally. I sat there for a solid minute trying to think logically. Maybe it was a mistake. Maybe the guy bought the weights secondhand too and didn't know. I thought about messaging him, but his profile was gone. Just like that. This page is not available. That's when the paranoia started creeping in. What if it wasn't a mistake? What if these weights were used to hide something? I counted the bags roughly. There were at least 10, each one packed full. I didn't even want to open them all, but I could tell just by the thickness that it was thousands of dollars. I didn't know what to do. Keeping it didn't feel right, but who was I supposed to call? The police? And tell them I bought hollow weights full of cash online. I kept thinking they'd think I was part of something. I didn't sleep that night. I pushed all the weights under my bed and tried to act like it didn't happen. Around 3 a.m., I woke up to loud banging on my front door. At first, I thought maybe it was neighbors or someone drunk. But then I heard the word police shouted, followed by more pounding. I froze. They were yelling for me to open up. I didn't even have time to process it before the door burst open and a flood of people in black tactical gear came in yelling commands. They told me to stay on the ground and not move. I didn't even argue. My head was spinning. Within seconds, they were in every room, ripping open drawers, checking behind furniture, tearing open the boxes I'd just unpacked. One of the officers pulled out one of the hollow weights and showed the others what was inside. I just lay there staring, completely lost. They took me in for questioning. Apparently, the cash in those weights wasn't just random money. It was tied to a robbery that happened 2 towns over. Some warehouse had been hit, and over $200,000 were stolen. The suspects used Facebook Marketplace to move stolen goods and hide the money inside items they could resell without suspicion. They told me the man who sold me the weights, Dan, wasn't named Dan at all. The account was one of several fake profiles used by the same group. They'd already arrested 2 of them earlier that day, and when they found the messages from my account about the weights, they thought I might be part of the ring too. I had to explain every detail. How I found the listing when I paid, how he looked, everything. They asked if I'd opened the weights before the raid. I told them yes, and one of the detectives gave me a look that made me feel like I'd messed up by even touching them. They eventually confirmed my story lined up with the timeline of the other victims. Turns out I wasn't the only one who'd bought things from them. One guy bought a treadmill, another got a set of boxing gloves with cash rolled up in the padding. These guys were using Facebook Marketplace as a smuggling route, storing stolen money inside random items until they could retrieve it later. After hours at the station, they let me go, but they kept everything. The weights, the cash, even my phone for evidence. They said I'd probably get it back in a few weeks, but I never did. For a while, I couldn't even look at Marketplace again. Every time I saw a listing for anything used, even something small, I'd picture that hollow weight splitting open, money spilling out, and cops bursting through my door like I was some kind of criminal. It's weird because I still remember how normal that day started, just scrolling for gym gear, trying to save some money, thinking I found a good deal. And somehow I ended up in the middle of a robbery investigation without even leaving my living room. Sometimes I still wonder how many of those listings are sitting out there right now, still up, waiting for someone else to click buy. I met her in one of those Facebook mom groups where people trade hand-me-downs and give advice about teething and tantrums. I joined after having my son, just to feel less alone since I didn't really have other mom friends nearby. Her name was Melissa, and she seemed like one of the most active members in there, always posting about playdates, free baby clothes, or sharing little parenting hacks that actually worked. Her posts always had this warm tone, like she really cared about helping other moms. It started small. She commented on one of my posts where I was asking if anyone knew a good babysitter for occasional evenings. My shifts at work had changed, and I didn't have anyone to watch my son while I covered late hours. She messaged me privately saying she could help, mentioned she'd been watching kids for a few families in the area, and that she even ran a small childcare community page for moms to connect. Her Facebook page looked perfect. She had reviews from other women, photos of her with smiling toddlers, posts about activities like painting or reading time. It didn't look like something made overnight. There were months' worth of posts. It felt genuine. She even shared photos of her own daughter, a little blonde girl named Daisy who looked around 6. The pictures were cute, the kind of thing moms post all the time. We started talking more after that. She was really chatty, always friendly, asking about my son, how old he was, what kind of snacks he liked. She said she lived just a few streets away and offered to meet up at the park one afternoon to see how the kids got along before babysitting. That sounded smart, so I agreed. She showed up exactly when she said she would, pushing a pink stroller with that same little girl from her photo sitting inside. She was soft-spoken, dressed in a big hoodie, hair tied back messily. The girl barely said a word, but she smiled shyly and waved at my son. I didn't think anything of it. Some kids are just quiet around strangers. We chatted for about an hour. Melissa seemed totally normal. She told me she was a stay-at-home mom and liked babysitting on the side for extra money. She talked about how hard it was being a single parent and how she wanted to build a small daycare eventually. Everything she said made sense. After a few meetups, I finally asked if she could watch my son one Saturday night. I was working late and just needed someone for a few hours. She said yes right away. She even refused to take payment until after, saying, "Let's just see if he settles in first." That made me trust her even more. The night came and I packed my son's things, His favorite toys, snacks, pajamas, everything. Melissa texted saying she was already nearby and could pick him up instead of me driving him off. She said Daisy was already asleep and she didn't want to wake her by going out again later. It sounded convenient, so I agreed. When she pulled up, it was in this small silver car with baby toys hanging from the rearview mirror. She came up to my door, smiling like usual, and crouched to greet my son. That's when I noticed something weird. The little girl from before wasn't in the car. I asked if Daisy was at home, and she nodded quickly, saying she was watching a movie with her neighbor. Before I could say much else, blue and red lights flashed across my street. A police car turned the corner fast and stopped right behind her car. 2 officers jumped out, shouting for her to stay where she was. I froze, holding my son. Melissa didn't say a word. She just stood there with this blank expression, like she'd been caught doing something she already expected to get caught for. One officer came to me and asked my name, while the other grabbed her by the arm. They said she needed to step away from the vehicle. I was completely confused, asking what was going on. Then one of the officers looked at my son's bag in her hand and said quietly that I should go back inside with my child. I did, still shaking. I peeked through the window and watched as they opened the car doors, checking everything inside. They pulled out car seats, toys, and then a big duffel bag from the trunk. It took about 20 minutes before another police car arrived. Melissa was handcuffed and put inside. Later that night, after everything calmed down, one of the officers came back to talk to me. He explained that Melissa wasn't her real name. She'd been using multiple fake profiles on Facebook, posing as different moms to gain people's trust. The photos she used on her page, the ones showing her with kids, weren't hers at all. They were photos of missing children from various states. The little girl she brought to the park wasn't her daughter either. The police said she'd been babysitting her for a family who'd also met her through Facebook, but that she'd stopped showing up at their house days before. The parents hadn't even realized the woman watching their child was using a fake identity. Apparently, the police had been tracking her for weeks. They got tipped off after one of the missing kids in her photos was recognized by someone online. When they traced her messages, they found she'd arranged multiple babysitting pickups across different towns. She would gain the parents' trust, meet them casually first, and then on the next visit, offer to pick the child up herself. Some of those parents hadn't seen their kids again. The part that messed with me most was how close I came to being one of them. If the police hadn't arrived when they did, she would have driven off with my son. I wouldn't have even known until hours later when I finished work. The next morning, her Facebook profile was gone. The group we met through had been taken down too. A few other moms started messaging each other trying to figure out who else she'd contacted. Some said they'd spoken to her before. One woman said she'd even been inside her house once, or what she thought was her house, but now realized it might have been some abandoned place she was using for meetings. Police said they found photos and kids' belongings inside a flat registered under her real name, but they didn't tell us much else. I stopped using Facebook after that for a long time. Every time I think about it, I picture her standing on my doorstep, smiling like she was just another friendly mom. But that smile was fake. Everything about her was fake.
Hey guys, really sorry to interrupt. If you're still listening, then you're enjoying the story so far. And if you are enjoying, then please hit that like button. That's all I ask of you. Thanks so much. Now back to the stories.
I've been saving for that car for almost 2 years, working double shifts, cutting back on nights out, even selling my old gaming setup just to add a bit more to the down payment. So when I finally drove it home, I couldn't help showing it off. It wasn't anything too crazy. I used BMW black, tinted windows, clean interior. But to me, it felt like something I'd earned. I took a few photos outside of my building, parked under the streetlight where the paint caught the shine just right. I posted them on Facebook with the caption, "Finally got her." Within an hour, the post blew up more than I expected. Old mates, co-workers, random people from school I hadn't spoken to in years. Everyone started commenting. "Congrats, bro. Looks sick. About time." Stuff like that. A few profiles I didn't even recognize were commenting too, people who looked mutual with my friends. I didn't think much of it. Facebook's weird like that. It connects everyone through someone. Later that night, around 11, I heard something outside. It sounded faint, like a door shutting, then footsteps. I thought maybe it was just someone leaving the building. But when I looked through my window, my parking spot was empty. The car was gone. I ran outside barefoot, scanning the street, thinking maybe I'd parked it somewhere else. But no, the oil spot where it had been sitting was right there. I tried calling 999, still half asleep, stuttering through my words. The operator asked if I'd seen anything suspicious, but I hadn't. It was like it vanished. The police came about 40 minutes later. They took notes, asked if I had GPS tracking or dashcam footage. I didn't. The officer said car thefts had been spiking lately, especially nice cars left parked in visible areas. He said they'd keep an eye out, but honestly, I didn't expect to see it again. The next morning, I went back through my Facebook post, just out of curiosity. I started noticing things I hadn't before. Some of the comments were from accounts with no profile pictures. Others had photos but looked off, same car photos, same backgrounds, same wording in their bios. All of them had said something short like "nice ride" or "congrats, bro." I clicked one of the names and realized the account had been made only a few weeks ago. No posts, no friends except random public groups about car deals or used auto parts. Another one was the same, created recently, joined a bunch of car pages. I started thinking maybe these weren't real people at all. I told the police about it when I went in to file an official report. They asked for my Facebook info and said they'd check if anything connected. A few hours later, one of the officers called me back. He said they'd found something interesting. Apparently, there was a private Facebook group under a fake name, something like Motor Recycle Crew, and my post had been screenshotted and shared in there. Someone had posted with my caption, my photos, and even tagged the rough area based on my location tag from the post. They said the group wasn't just a bunch of car fans. It was being used by a chop shop ring. Basically people who steal cars, strip them for parts, and sell them off online. The members would monitor social media for people posting new cars, especially ones parked outside or in driveways, and use location data or background details to find them. Then they'd comment on the post pretending to be friends, not to interact, but to push the post higher in the feed and mask the fact that someone was tracking it. The part that freaked me out most was that they weren't even random strangers. The police said some of these accounts were connected through mutual friends. They'd join public friend lists, blend in, and wait. I asked how they found my post in that group, and the officer said Facebook's moderation team had flagged the group weeks earlier, but they were still investigating because it had thousands of members. My post had been shared within hours of me uploading it. Someone even commented underneath it in that group, saying same street as last week, easy pick. I don't even know how they got my exact address. Maybe from another old post, maybe from someone's tagged photo of me outside my building, or maybe just by recognizing the area. Either way, it was fast. About 3 days later, the police called again. They found my car, or what was left of it. It was parked in a warehouse lot outside town, stripped down to the metal. The license plates were gone, windows smashed, seats ripped out. They said they'd arrested 2 guys at the scene, both connected to the same Facebook accounts that had commented on my post. Apparently, they used a network of accounts to track dozens of people the same way. They'd comment on photos, act friendly, and then send location details to others who'd do the actual stealing. The group was private and full of fake reviews and trade listings, but behind the scenes, it was a coordination hub for thefts. When I saw the car at the impound yard, I barely recognized it. Everything I'd worked for was just a pile of metal now. The police said they were still trying to trace where the rest of the parts went, but it was unlikely I'd ever get anything back. After that, I deleted my Facebook. I didn't even deactivate it. I fully deleted it. I went through every other app too, removing any posts that showed my location or things I owned. The idea that people had commented on my post just to mark me for a theft made my skin crawl. It's not even that I was showing off. I'd just been proud. I'd spent years saving, years trying to get something nice for myself. And somehow that small bit of pride turned into someone else's opportunity. Sometimes I think about how quickly it all happened. How something as harmless as a few likes and comments could turn into a whole operation watching your life without you realizing. It makes you second guess every friendly comment, every profile that looks familiar but isn't. The weirdest part, a month later I saw a car that looked exactly like mine in another Facebook post. Same model, same color, same scuff mark near the headlight. Different owner though, different location. And the post had the same kind of comments, random people saying looks clean or fire ride. I didn't say anything. I just kept scrolling. It started like nothing, just a random friend request one night while I was scrolling half asleep. The profile looked normal enough. His name was Jake Moore. He had about 15 mutual friends, mostly people I'd gone to school with or still saw around on Facebook. I didn't think much about it. His profile photo looked casual, him standing in front of a car, a few posts about football, a holiday picture somewhere sunny. I clicked confirm and went to sleep. Over the next few weeks, I'd see his name pop up here and there. He liked my photos, react to random posts, even comment on memes or my friends' pictures. It was all really normal, nothing creepy. I didn't message him or anything, but he felt like one of those people you just have floating around in your feed. A few weeks later, I started noticing something weird. Whenever I'd post a photo or a story, he'd be one of the first people to react. Within seconds sometimes. I remember thinking it was strange, but I brushed it off. People are glued to their phones, so it wasn't exactly impossible. Around that time, I'd started renting a new flat. It was small but nice, one bedroom, open plan kitchen and living area, big mirror above the sofa. I liked how the mirror made the room look brighter. The first week I lived there, I posted a short Facebook story showing the new place. Nothing major, just the view, my couch, and a coffee table set. That story got a ton of reactions, including one from Jake. He commented something like nice setup, which again didn't seem off at the time. About 2 weeks later, it was a Saturday night, and I was just sitting at home watching something on Netflix. I picked up my phone to scroll through Facebook, and that's when I saw it. At the top of my feed, there was a live stream notification. It said Jake Moore is live. I don't even know why I clicked it. Probably just curiosity. But the second the video opened, my stomach dropped. It was my living room. Not a video of a similar room. My exact living room. The same sofa, same table, same lamp in the corner. The mirror on the wall was clearly visible, reflecting everything. The video was shaky, like it was streaming from a small camera and there was no sound. Just a dim feed showing my room in real time. At first, I thought maybe someone had hacked my phone or my Facebook somehow, but then I noticed something worse. I was in the frame. You could see me sitting on the couch, scrolling my phone. In that exact moment, the live viewer count was going up. Dozens of people were watching. Some were commenting things like, "Whose place is this?" And "Yo, this is creepy." Others were sending laughing emojis. My heart was pounding. I turned my phone off and ran around the flat trying to figure out where the camera was. I couldn't find anything obvious. I unplugged my laptop, my TV, even my Wi-Fi router, thinking maybe it was being streamed through one of those. Nothing changed. I just sat there, shaking, staring at the mirror. That's when it hit me. The angle of the live video. It was being streamed from somewhere near the mirror, like the camera was facing the room from that spot. I grabbed a chair, climbed up, and ran my hand along the top edge of the mirror. My fingers hit something small, round, and cold. It was a camera lens. It was built into the frame, hidden so cleanly I'd never have noticed. There was a tiny light blinking that I hadn't seen before. I'd yanked it out and threw it on the floor, then unplugged every plug in the flat just to be safe. I called the police right after. They told me to leave the flat immediately and wait outside. When they arrived, they went through everything: walls, sockets, vents behind furniture. They found the same type of small cameras hidden in two other spots, one behind the TV and another near the bookshelf, all wired into a small black box tucked behind the mirror's frame. The officer said it looked like a signal transmitter, like something meant to broadcast video feeds remotely. They took it for evidence and asked how long I'd lived there. When I told them it had only been a month, they said it could have been installed before I moved in. But then they started digging into the Facebook side of it. I showed them the account that had live streamed it. By the time they searched Jake Moore, the account was gone. Completely deleted. The officer said they'd contact Facebook to trace the IP, but that could take a while. Still, they took screenshots of the notifications and the comments from my phone. A few days later, one of the detectives called me back. They found out that Jake Moore wasn't a real person. The profile photo belonged to some random guy from another country. The posts on his timeline were copied from different users, all stitched together to look real. The account had been made only 2 months earlier. What was worse, Facebook confirmed the same account had joined multiple local community groups, housing groups, marketplace pages, even a few rental advice ones. They think whoever was behind it was targeting people who recently moved into new flats or posted photos of their homes. Using mutual friends and group connections made it easy to blend in. The hidden cameras, according to police, were linked to a private Facebook group that streamed live footage from random people's homes. The streams were traded, commented on, and even bet on for how long before they notice. My living room had been one of them. It made me sick knowing strangers had been watching me sit, eat, or even sleep, all while reacting like it was entertainment. The detective said they'd managed to trace one location linked to the signal source, an old storage unit rented under a fake name not far from my building. Inside, they found dozens of the same camera setups, boxes of equipment, and lists of people's names, all tied to their Facebook profiles. My name was there, my flat number. The data moved in. I couldn't go back after that. I moved in with a friend and got rid of everything I owned from that flat, even the mirror. The landlord swore he didn't know anything about it, but I didn't care. I deleted every social media account I had after that. Sometimes I still think about that moment, opening that live stream and seeing myself completely unaware. The idea that someone was watching through my own mirror still messes with me. And every time I see a new friend request pop up on any app, I can't help wondering how many people add strangers without even thinking twice, not realizing one of them might already be watching. I'd always been obsessed with old tech. Cassette players, VHS recorders, cameras that still used film, all of it. There's something about stuff that still works decades later that feels more real than anything made today. I used to scroll through Facebook Marketplace at night, but one day I came across a group called Vintage Tech Collectors UK. It had thousands of members, people posting old radios, game consoles, even weird prototypes. I joined instantly. Everyone in the group seemed genuine. They posted photos of their collections, swaps, meetups, and restoration projects. After a few days, I started commenting on posts, asking questions about repairing an old camcorder I found at a car boot sale. One guy in particular, named Alan, replied to me right away. His profile photo showed him in a workshop surrounded by shelves of vintage gear. He looked like someone's uncle, glasses, gray hair, friendly face. He said he had the exact model I was trying to fix, and that he could even sell me parts for cheap. We chatted for a while, and he sent me pictures of his collection. Old CRT monitors, retro phones, piles of computer chips. It looked insane, like something straight out of a museum. We ended up talking almost every night for a week. He messaged me random facts about cameras or asked what kind of stuff I collected. It felt normal, even cool, to find someone into the same stuff. He said he lived a few towns away and usually drove around the area to deliver items instead of posting them. He even showed me a picture of his white van with retro rescues painted on the side in red letters. After a while, I agreed to buy an old Sony Walkman from him. He said it was mint condition, $40, and he'd deliver it himself since he was already passing through. He asked if we could meet in person so he could show me how to check for battery corrosion and lens alignment. I didn't think twice. It wasn't unusual for collectors to meet up. We arranged to meet in a supermarket car park about 10 minutes from where I live. The day came, and I was actually excited. I got there a few minutes early, parked near the edge, and waited. A few minutes later, a white van pulled in. It looked exactly like the one in his photo. Clean, the same red logo on the side. He waved from the driver's seat and parked next to me. When he stepped out, he looked just like his pictures too, though his hair looked a bit darker in person. He was carrying a small brown box, smiling like we were old friends. He told me he had a few other items in the van if I wanted to take a look. I was curious, so I walked over. The side door was already open. Inside, there were boxes stacked up, full of random electronics, old phones, cameras, cords. It looked legit, but something about it felt off. Everything was too neat. Each box was taped shut except for one. He reached into the van, pretending to look for the Walkman, and then told me it might be in the back. He asked if I could help him check since he'd hurt his shoulder. I hesitated but figured he was older, so I stepped a bit closer. That's when I noticed the front seats. They were covered with a thick plastic sheet, like the kind you use for painting walls. There were also zip ties and duct tape sitting on the dashboard. My stomach tightened. I started backing away slowly, pretending to look at my phone. Before I could say anything, A police car suddenly pulled into the car park, sirens off but lights flashing. Another one followed right behind it. Within seconds, officers were out, guns drawn, shouting at him to put his hands up. I froze. Alan, or whoever he was, didn't even run. He just stood there, eyes blank, hands raised like he'd been expecting it. The police grabbed him, pushed him against the van, and cuffed him while shouting codes into their radios. One of them came to me asking if I was okay and how I knew him. I couldn't even explain properly. I just said I was meeting him to buy something. They told me to move back while they opened the back of the van. I wish I hadn't looked, but I caught a glimpse before they covered it. There were more boxes, not full of tech, but of medical supplies. IV bags, sealed containers, gloves, and something else wrapped in thick plastic, half hidden under a tarp. The officers kept the area sealed off for hours. I sat in my car shaking, watching the scene unfold. They took him away in the back of the police car, and one of the officers came back to tell me I'd stumbled into an active investigation. Apparently, the van had been under surveillance for weeks. He wasn't some collector. He was part of a trafficking ring, not drugs, but people. Specifically, they targeted young adults online through hobby groups, arranging fake meetups to abduct them. The Retro Rescues page was part of their front. Police said they'd been using it to find victims who'd be easy to lure out with cash deals or meetups. The organ trafficking link came from one of their safe houses they'd raided a few days before. They asked me to show them our messages. When I scrolled up, I noticed something that made my skin crawl. He'd mentioned before that he liked meeting solo buyers because it was easier to negotiate without confusion. It didn't register as strange before, but reading it again made me feel sick. The next day, I read about it online. There was a short article about an ongoing operation in multiple towns where police had arrested 3 men using social media groups to target people. It said the van had been tracked after someone went missing a week earlier from another meetup. They hadn't released names, but I knew it was him. I deleted my Facebook right after that. I couldn't even scroll through my feed anymore without feeling like someone was watching. Every group I'd joined suddenly felt unsafe, like anyone could be pretending. A week later, I got a call from one of the detectives saying that if I hadn't hesitated that night, they might not have reached me in time. They'd been tracking his van by GPS and moved in when they saw me messaging him about the meetup location. I think about that a lot. How something as harmless as buying a Walkman could have gone completely differently. How I almost stepped into that van without thinking. I never met anyone from the internet in person again after that. Every time I pass a white van now, I still glance at it just to check if it says Retro Rescues. I've sold plenty of stuff on Facebook Marketplace. Clothes, old lamps, random chairs I didn't need. I'd never had any problems. You meet the buyer, exchange the item, done. Most people are friendly, quick, and normal. I guess that's why I didn't think twice about listing my old wooden dresser. It had been sitting in the corner of my spare room for months. I took a few photos, wrote up a short description, and posted it for $80. Within an hour, I got a message. The profile name was Tim R. The photo showed a middle-aged guy wearing a cap. Nothing strange about him. He asked if it was still available and said he could pick it up that night. At first, I told him I'd rather do the exchange during the day since it was already past 9 p.m., but he said he worked night shifts and it was the only time he could come by. I hesitated, but he kept saying he'd pay full price and bring cash. Eventually, I gave in. I figured it would be fine. It was just a pickup. I even told my neighbor across the hall that someone was coming for furniture, just in case they saw people moving stuff late at night. He said he'd be there around 9:45. The time ticked by slowly. When I checked his profile again, something caught my attention. His Facebook timeline was empty. No posts, no tagged photos, no friends listed. Only the one profile picture. I brushed it off, assuming he just used Facebook for buying stuff. At 9:50, I saw headlights outside. A large white van pulled up, engine still running. My stomach tensed a bit, but I told myself I was overthinking it. When I stepped outside, he got out, taller than I expected, wearing dark clothes, gloves, and a hat pulled low. He waved and smiled, saying he'd park closer to load the dresser. I opened the door wider so he could come measure the furniture. He walked around it slowly, tapping the edges and mumbling something about good condition. Then he asked if I could help him carry it to the van since he didn't want to scratch it. Something about the way he said it made me uncomfortable. Still, I helped him lift one side. We carried it out together into the cold, quiet street. There wasn't anyone else around. The van door was already open, and inside I could see what looked like a tarp laid out on the floor. When I looked closer, I noticed there were also metal hooks fixed into the floor of the van, 4 of them, one in each corner. There was also duct tape, rope, and what looked like plastic zip ties on the shelf behind the seats. My chest tightened. He noticed me staring and quickly said something about using them for packing and moving. I let go of the dresser immediately and said I needed to grab the payment receipt from inside. I turned back toward my door, trying not to make it obvious that I was leaving. He said he followed me in to make sure it fits through the doorway, but I slammed the door shut before he reached the steps. My hands were shaking so badly that I dropped my phone trying to call someone. Through the small window beside my door, I saw him standing there for a moment, staring at the door. Then he slowly walked back to the van. The engine started, and the headlights came on again. I thought he was leaving, but the van just stayed parked there for a minute before finally pulling away. I called my neighbor right after. He told me to lock everything and stay put. A few minutes later, I heard sirens in the distance. Apparently, my neighbor had called the police before I even reached him. He said he'd seen the van parked outside earlier and something about it didn't look right. The officers showed up not long after. They checked the street and radioed nearby units. About half an hour later, they came back and said they'd stopped the same van only a few streets away. They told me the driver had tried to make a run for it when they pulled him over. Inside the van, they found more than just rope and duct tape. There were restraints, cups, medical gloves, tools, even several rolls of heavy plastic. The officers wouldn't tell me everything, but they looked pale when they described it. When they checked the man's ID, it didn't even match the name on his Facebook profile. He used a fake account to arrange pickups with women selling furniture or small items, always insisting on nighttime collections. Police said they connected him to other missing person reports from nearby towns. Later, when they asked me for proof of our conversation, I opened Facebook to show them. But the entire chat was gone. His account had disappeared, like it never existed. Luckily, I had screenshots from earlier messages when he first arranged the time. That was enough to confirm it was the same profile. One of the officers said I was lucky my neighbor noticed and called when he did. They'd been tracking vans like his after a similar case a month earlier. Another woman had disappeared after arranging a sale through Marketplace. She'd gone out to help load an item into a van just like I almost did. They found her phone a few miles away, but not her. The police kept me updated for a while. They said the man was under investigation for multiple attempted kidnappings. The van, from what they found, was equipped for holding someone for hours, soundproof lining, locks on the inside, everything. The thought of how close I came stepping into that van still makes my skin crawl. I think about how casually I gave my address, how I didn't even question why someone would insist on picking up furniture in the dark. After that night, I deleted all my Marketplace listings. The idea of strangers showing up at my door makes me sick now. I also bought a camera for my porch, just in case. Every time I see a white van drive past my building, my chest tightens, even if it's just a delivery one. What stuck with me most was when the officer said the man had a list in his van, handwritten notes with names and addresses. My name was on it, my listing title, the time I told him to come. Now, I can't help thinking about all the people still selling things on there, meeting random buyers in parking lots or late at night, trusting that Facebook's verified profiles actually mean something. All I did was post a dresser. That was it. I could have easily been another name on the missing list. It started as one of those random Facebook events that pop up in your feed when you're bored scrolling. The post said, "Free community barbecue. This weekend. Bring an OT thing, just yourself." The banner photo looked casual, a picnic table in a backyard with food and balloons. The host's name was something like John and Lisa's Neighborhood Cookout, and the event was tagged only a few miles from where I live. There were already hundreds of people marked as interested or going. Most of them looked like real accounts, profile pictures, posts, comments. Some were even local faces I vaguely recognized from mutual groups. The page said it was for bringing neighbors together after hard times. It sounded harmless, even nice. It was on a Saturday afternoon. I'd finished work early and didn't have plans, so I figured why not. Free food, good weather, and maybe I'd meet new people. I messaged one of my friends asking if he wanted to come, but he said he hadn't heard of it and was busy. So I decided to go alone. The address listed on the event page was about 20 minutes away. I typed it into maps and it led to a quiet residential area I didn't know well. As I got closer, I noticed there weren't any signs of a big gathering. No cars lining the street, no music, nothing. The houses looked spaced out, lots of trees and overgrown grass. When I reached the exact address, I thought maybe I typed it wrong. The house looked abandoned. The front yard was overrun with weeds, the driveway cracked, windows boarded on one side. But there was a folding table set up near the porch with a small sign taped to it that said barbecue back. It was written in black marker, shaky handwriting, like it had been done fast. For a second, I thought maybe I was early. The event said 3 p.m., and it was only 2:45. I parked my car across the street and decided to walk around back to check. The gate was open. I stepped through and instantly felt weird. The backyard was empty. No grill, no people, nothing that looked like a party. Just long grass, old patio furniture, and a few trees near the back fence. The only sound was wind pushing through the branches. I stood there for a minute, waiting, half expecting someone to come out laughing, saying they were setting up or something. But nothing. I turned to leave, and that's when I noticed something strange. There was a faint red light blinking in one of the trees up high, then another one in a different tree across the yard, both barely noticeable unless you were looking for them. I thought maybe they were motion sensors or some kind of animal deterrent, but the positioning was odd, pointed directly at the house and the backyard. I walked backward a bit, scanning the area, and realized there were at least 4 or 5 of those lights, each one facing inward, angled down like cameras. Suddenly, it hit me that maybe this wasn't a real event. I pulled out my phone to double-check the event page, but when I refreshed it, it was gone. Completely disappeared. No name, no listing, no trace. Even the messages I'd exchanged with the host were gone from my inbox. That's when the panic really set in. I turned to leave, but as I got to the gate, a van pulled up slowly in front of the house. Blacked out windows, no markings, just idling there. I didn't wait to see what they were doing. I walked fast to my car, trying not to run. When I got in, I locked the doors and started the engine. The van stayed parked for a few seconds, then slowly drove off down the road. I sat there for a moment catching my breath, trying to make sense of it. I drove home right after, but I couldn't stop thinking about the blinking lights and that weird table out front. Later that night, I checked local Facebook groups to see if anyone else mentioned the barbecue. No one had, not a single post. I searched the address, and people in another group had mentioned it before. Apparently, the house had been abandoned for almost a year. The owners moved away after a fire damaged the inside. No one lived there. That freaked me out even more. I thought maybe it was some kind of prank, but the next day I got a call from the police. I guess they traced my car plate from when a neighbor had reported a suspicious vehicle near the old Grant property. The officer asked if I'd been there for a Facebook event, and when I said yes, he told me I wasn't the only one. Several people had shown up that afternoon, some alone, some in pairs. Each one had seen the same setup, a table out front, the barbecue sign, and blinking lights around the property. One guy said he saw movement inside the house, but when police arrived, it was completely empty. Here's the part that still messes with me. The police found hidden cameras not just in the trees, but also in the fence posts and near the porch. All of them were connected to small battery packs and wireless transmitters. The feeds were traced to servers linked to dark web forums where people streamed live footage of unsuspecting victims walking into fake meetups. The event wasn't real. It was a lure. The hosts had created multiple fake profiles, each one with old recycled photos and mutual friends pulled from random users to look trustworthy. Once people RSVP'd, their details were logged. The cameras were placed to film arrivals, faces, license plates, everything, for viewers paying to watch what they thought would turn violent. The officers said they'd caught a few of the people behind it, but most were using fake accounts and remote setups. The van I saw belonged to one of them. They'd been sitting nearby, controlling the cameras and waiting to see who showed up. Knowing I was being filmed without even realizing made me feel sick. I kept replaying that moment when I stood in the yard, looking right at the blinking light, not knowing dozens of people online could have been watching me. After that, I deleted every public event I'd ever responded to. I stopped going to anything advertised through random Facebook invites. Even when friends post parties now, I double-check everything. Sometimes I still think about what would have happened if I'd gone into the house instead of turning back. One of the officers said they found ropes and a tripod inside, along with what looked like blood on the floorboards, but he said they couldn't confirm how long it had been there. Every time I think about it, the same thing crosses my mind. How many other freebie heaps or community events like that are still floating around online, waiting for someone else to show up? It started with a lost cat post that showed up on my feed one morning. A little black and white cat named Milo. The post said he'd gone missing near my street and that the owners were desperate to find him. The picture showed him sitting on a brick wall I recognized, the exact corner 2 houses down from me. The post was shared from a local Facebook group called Northfield Missing Pets. I'd never heard of it before, but I clicked in right away. The page had a ton of activity. Every few hours, new posts about missing cats, dogs, even a rabbit once. People commenting with tips, photos, supposed sightings. It looked legit, like a community thing where everyone helped each other out. I joined the group without thinking. It made sense. I loved animals, and I'd grown up around that area my whole life. The admin, a guy named Mark who ran the page, welcomed new members with a friendly message saying he created the group to reunite owners with their lost loved ones. He posted every single day, tagging people, updating maps of sightings. At first, I thought he was just one of those dedicated people who took community stuff seriously. A few days later, another post went up. This time it was a dog named Toby, a golden retriever from my exact road. I remember staring at the photo because the pavement looked familiar, like it was taken near the old bus stop by my building. I even commented, saying I'd keep an eye out. Then the next day, there was another post, a missing cat named Pepper. Again, same area, my road. That's when it started to feel strange. I scrolled back through the group and noticed a pattern. Almost every single missing pet in the past month had been reported from streets close to mine. Some literally a few houses away. I counted at least 8 from the same 2-block radius. At first, I thought maybe someone in the area was leaving food out that was making animals wander off. But what got weirder was how quickly the admin Mark would comment on each post. He'd always respond within minutes, tagging the owner and saying something like, "I think someone found one nearby, I'll DM you." The comments would then stop. No updates. No pet found posts. Just silence. I started scrolling through older posts to see if any of the pets had been recovered. Almost none had. It was all the same. Lost. Please help. Any news. And then nothing. About a week after joining, one of the posts caught my attention for another reason. It was about a missing husky named Luna. The owner, a young woman named Sophie, posted her own message saying Mark had contacted her privately about a possible sighting near the old railway path behind town. She'd gone there to check, but there were no signs of the dog. The comments under her posts suddenly stopped after that. The next day, Sophie's post was gone, deleted completely. I messaged her profile directly, but it said, "User not found." I thought maybe she found her dog and deleted her post, but it bugged me that it disappeared so fast. Later that week, I noticed something outside my flat. A man walking up and down the street slowly, shining a small flashlight between parked cars. He had a hoodie on, moving quiet like he didn't want to be seen. At first, I thought he was just someone looking for their cat, but when I looked closer, I realized he was holding a leash with no animal attached. I stayed behind the curtain, watching him. He stopped right outside my building, took out his phone, and started taking pictures of something. Then he walked off, treading down toward the park. That same night, the missing pet page posted again. Another cat missing near Northfield Road. Please share. My exact street. It freaked me out enough that I messaged one of the other members in the group. She was an older lady named Margaret who commented a lot. I asked if she'd noticed how many animals were going missing from the same area. She replied, saying she'd been thinking the same thing. She said her neighbor's cat had gone missing 2 weeks ago, and that the admin had told them to meet at an animal recovery point by the old railway bridge, the same one Sophie went to. But when they got there, no one showed up. That was enough for me. I called the local police line and explained what I'd seen. They said they'd look into it. I didn't expect anything to happen, honestly, but a few days later I saw 2 officers outside one of the side roads near the park. I walked over pretending to take the bins out, and they were talking to someone next to a van. I didn't think much of it until that evening when the news broke online. They arrested the admin of the Northfield Missing Pets page, the same guy, Mark. The article said police had been investigating after multiple people reported strange messages from him about recovery meetups. He'd been luring pet owners to isolated spots at night, claiming he found their animals. They didn't say exactly what happened at those meetings, but they confirmed several people had gone missing after being contacted. They also found evidence that he'd been abducting the animals himself. In his shed, they discovered cages, collars, and dozens of pet tags. The photos from the news were haunting. Rows of cages in the dark, water bowls lined up, piles of animal fur everywhere. But the part that really got to me was that they said most of the animals had been taken from my area. He lived 3 streets away. He'd been using the group to post fake lost pet alerts, then waiting for desperate owners to contact him. When they did, he'd tell them he'd spotted their pet in remote locations like the railway bridge or the forest trail outside town. He'd arranged to meet them there, usually at night. The police said they caught him after setting up surveillance near the bridge. Apparently, they'd been watching the page too after the first few reports came in. When he messaged another owner to meet him there, officers were waiting. His van was parked nearby. Inside, they found restraints, tranquilizers, and several pet carriers. When I saw his mugshot online, I recognized him instantly. The same man I'd seen outside my building that night with a leash. He'd been scouting houses. After that, I deleted my Facebook completely. I still walk around my neighborhood sometimes and notice the posters for missing pets that never came back. People still put them up, not knowing the truth behind those first few cases. It's messed up thinking about how close I was to messaging him myself, especially when I saw that first cat post. I keep wondering what would have happened if I'd lost my own pet and trusted that group like everyone else did. Now every time I see a missing post online, I can't help but wonder who's actually behind it. I wasn't looking for anything serious, just chatting, swiping, seeing who was nearby. Her profile popped up after a few minutes. Name was Chloe, mid-20s, worked in marketing, lived about 20 minutes away. Her pictures stood out instantly. She had this calm, natural look, like the kind of person who didn't need filters to look good. Her profile wasn't empty either. There were a few posts, normal stuff. Her with friends, her at a coffee shop, a picture of a small dog. Everything looked real. She had mutual friends too, so I figured she must have been local. We started messaging, and she replied almost instantly. She was funny, asked a lot of questions, seemed genuinely interested. We talked for a few days straight, morning till night. She told me she recently moved into a new place with a friend and was still settling in. She sent pictures of the flat. Nothing fancy, just normal. The more we talked, the more it felt like I actually knew her. She wasn't over the top, didn't push for anything weird, just casual conversations about work, food, and the usual stuff people talk about when getting to know each other. After about a week, she asked if I wanted to meet. She said her friend was hosting a small get-together at their flat, just a few people, nothing major. It didn't sound sketchy at all. I even looked up the street she mentioned, and it was in a decent area, not far from the city center. She gave me the flat number and said to come by around 8. I asked if she wanted me to pick her up or meet somewhere public first, but she said it'd be easier to just come straight to the flat since they were already cooking and playing music. I got there a bit early, around 7:45. The building looked fine, small, modern, with balconies and a coated front door. I buzzed the flat number she'd given me, and a woman's voice came through asking who it was. I said my name, and she buzzed me in right away. The hallway inside smelled like cleaning spray. The door to the flat was half open, music playing faintly from inside. I knocked once, then stepped in slowly. There were 2 women in the living room, one sitting on the sofa, another standing near the kitchen counter. For a second, I froze. The one on the sofa looked exactly like the photos from the Facebook profile. Same hair, same face. But the woman standing by the counter, she was someone I'd never seen before. She smiled and said, "You must be the guy from Facebook," while the other one barely looked at me. Something felt off right away. The flat didn't look like the one from the pictures she'd sent. It was smaller, darker, and messy. Clothes on the floor, dishes piled up. The woman from the couch stood up slowly, watching me. Her expression wasn't friendly. She looked confused, almost scared. Before I could say anything, there was a loud knock on the door behind me. Not casual one, but hard, heavy pounding. Then voices yelling. Within seconds, the door burst open and 3 police officers rushed in shouting for everyone to stay still. It happened so fast, I didn't even process it. They told me to step back with my hands visible. The 2 women froze. One of the officers pulled the woman from the kitchen aside, and another went straight to the one who looked like the girl from the photos. She started crying instantly. They separated us all, asking for IDs. My heart was racing so bad I could barely talk. One of the officers asked what I was doing there, and I explained I was meeting someone from Facebook dating. He looked at me for a second and then said, "You've been talking to a stolen profile." I didn't understand what he meant at first. Then he showed me his phone, and it had the same pictures from Chloe's profile. But the real woman, the one crying on the couch, was right there in front of me. She wasn't the one who'd been messaging me. The woman in the kitchen had been pretending to be her. The officers said they'd been tracking reports of identity fraud linked to several dating and social media accounts. Apparently, the fake Chloe had been using stolen photos for months, luring men to fake meetups. She and a few others were part of a bigger scam operation, stealing money, personal details, and sometimes even setting people up for robbery. They'd raided the flat that night because it was flagged as one of the addresses connected to the fraud. I just happened to show up at the exact same time. The real Chloe, the one from the photos, had been living in the building too, completely unaware that someone else had been using her pictures. The scammers had chosen her because she posted publicly and had a normal-looking profile that made the fake one seem believable. They'd made a copy of her Facebook page, changed the name slightly, and used her photos to message dozens of people like me. The fake Chloe, the woman standing in the kitchen, wasn't alone in it either. Police said she was part of a small network that used fake dating profiles to gather personal info. They'd tell people to come to meetups, then either scam them or get access to their phones, accounts, or cars while they were distracted. While the police were taking statements, the real Chloe came over and apologized through tears. She said she'd been getting strange messages from people online for months, men she'd never spoken to, saying things like "nice chatting with you" or "see you tonight." She reported it before, but didn't know where it was coming from until the police traced the IP back to the same building. They let me go after a while once they confirmed I wasn't involved. I stood outside watching as they led the fake Chloe out in handcuffs. She didn't look at me, just kept her head down. The weirdest part was later that night when I checked my messages. The fake profile was gone, completely deleted. The chat thread had vanished like it never existed. I tried searching her name again, but nothing came up. Facebook even sent me an automated message saying the user had been removed for violating terms of service. For days after, I couldn't stop thinking about how real it all had seemed. The conversations, the photos, even the way she texted. Every little detail was crafted to seem normal. I went back and looked at old screenshots I'd saved and noticed tiny things I hadn't before. How some photos had slightly different lighting. How the dog's collar changed colors between posts. Things I'd never picked up on at the time. I deleted my Facebook dating profile that same night. I didn't even want to think about talking to anyone online again. The idea that someone could pretend to be another person so perfectly, down to using their exact home address to make it look legitimate, messed with my head. Every time I walk past that street now, I still think about how close I came to walking into something worse. If the police hadn't been watching that flat already, I don't know what would have happened. It's strange because on paper I didn't lose anything. I wasn't robbed, hurt, or scammed out of money. But knowing I was talking to a complete stranger behind someone else's stolen face still sticks with me. It makes you realize how easy it is for anyone to fake a life online, and how close I came to believing every part of it. I've been looking forward to that trip for months. It was my first proper holiday in years. A week away in Spain with a few friends, sun, food, beaches, the whole thing. I'd booked it months earlier, sorted my flat, told my landlord I'd be gone for a week, and even asked my actual neighbor, Mrs. Pedal, to keep an eye on any mail that got delivered. I lived alone, and I liked it that way. I posted a few photos on Facebook the first day we got there. Just normal stuff. A group selfie at the airport, a picture of the beach, and one of those sunset shots everyone takes. I didn't think much of it. I had my profile set to friends only, and my friends list wasn't huge anyway. By day 3, the holiday was perfect. Sunburned but happy, eating late dinners, staying up too long. That night, while scrolling through my notifications, I saw a message request. The name said Neighbor Dan. The profile picture was a blurry photo of what looked like my street. I thought maybe it was someone who just moved in next door. The message said, "Hey, just wanted to let you know I've been watering your plants while you're away. Hope the trip's going great." At first, it didn't sound creepy, just confusing. I didn't have a neighbor named Dan. My building was small, only 4 flats. I knew everyone. Mrs. Patel and Tua, the student couple below me, and the old man who kept to himself in the ground floor flat. There was no Dan. I read the message again, thinking maybe it was a prank, but the weirdest part was that he knew I was away. The only place I'd mentioned my trip was on Facebook. I clicked on his profile. It had barely any info. The cover photo was the same blurry shot of my street, and the profile picture looked like a cropped image of someone's hand holding the mug. No mutual friends, no posts, just one status from a few days earlier that said, "Nice neighborhood." I didn't reply. I locked my phone and tried to ignore it. But the next morning, another message came through. "The plants are looking great, by the way. I'll keep doing it till you're back." I felt sick. There was no way anyone should have been inside of my flat. My landlord hadn't given permission to anyone, and I'd locked every window before leaving. I sent a message to Mrs. Paddle asking if she'd seen anyone near my door lately, but she didn't reply until late that night. She said everything looked normal. By then, my friends were laughing it off, saying it was probably a scammer or someone trolling. But that night, I checked the message again, and something new appeared. A photo. It was of my living room, taken from behind the sofa facing the balcony door. I recognized it instantly, the small rug, my books piled on the coffee table, and the plant by the window he'd mentioned. The caption under it said, "See, watered." I don't think I've ever gone from calm to terrified so fast. My chest went tight, and my phone almost slipped out of my hand. I kept staring at the photo, zooming in, trying to see if there was something I'd missed. The lights were on in the picture, which made no sense because I'd turned everything off before leaving. I called Mrs. Patel immediately. She sounded half asleep but said she'd go check my door. A few minutes later, she called back whispering that she could hear noises inside. Movement. She said she was calling the police. I barely slept that night. My brain kept looping the same thought, that someone was in my home, maybe right now using my things, walking around like they owned the place. The next morning, Mrs. Patel messaged again saying the police had come, but no one answered the door. They said they couldn't break in without a warrant since there wasn't enough proof yet. She promised she'd keep watch, but that didn't help much. Later that afternoon, I got another message from neighbor Dan. This time it said, "Don't worry, everything's safe here. See you soon." That's when I called the police myself from Spain. I explained everything, the messages, the photo, the noises, even the fact that I'd never met a Dan. They said they'd send someone again to check. I begged them to enter the flat this time. It took about 6 hours before they called me back. I'll never forget the sound of the officer's voice when he said, "We found someone." When they entered the flat, the man was inside, not hiding, just sitting on my sofa scrolling through his phone. He'd moved things around, eaten food from the fridge, slept in my bed. The place smelled terrible. He told the police he'd been house sitting for me. The thing is, he didn't break in. He'd used a spare key. My landlord later said one of the old maintenance guys might have made a copy during renovations months ago. The man was in his 30s. When they arrested him, he kept saying my name, repeating facts about my life, where I worked, my dog's name from old posts, my favorite cafe, stuff I'd shared on Facebook years ago. He knew it all. He'd been watching my profile for months, waiting for a chance. The police said he even changed the locks while I was away, planning to stay longer. They found more photos on his phone, dozens taken inside my flat from different angles. Some while I was clearly still lived there. He'd been in before without me knowing. The name Neighbor Dan was fake, obviously. The profile had been made the same day I left for the trip. He followed my posts, seeing I was away, and moved in the same night. He'd been living there for 4 days before sending me that first message. The police told me he wasn't just some random intruder. He'd done this before, found people online, waited for them to announce holidays or trips, then used whatever information he could find to locate spare keys or access points. My photos made it easy. I'd posted my balcony view once, which showed the building's layout in the background. He'd used that to confirm my address. When I finally flew back home, my flat didn't feel like mine anymore. The walls felt wrong, like someone else's air still lingered there. They'd taken him away, but I couldn't stay that night. I went to my parents' place instead. A week later, I checked Facebook out of habit and saw the neighbor Dan profile was gone, deleted completely. But when I looked at my old post, the beach one, there was a new comment. It wasn't from him, but it was from another account with no photo. It said, "Nice trip. Plants look healthy." I deleted everything after that. I've always been into true crime stuff. Not in a weird way. I just liked watching documentaries, reading about unsolved cases, and following updates when new evidence came out. It was like a mystery you could never fully solve, something that got you hooked. So when I saw a Facebook group called Unsolved Crimes and Theories UK, I joined right away. The group looked normal at first. Thousands of members, constant posts about old cold cases, people debating theories. The admin's name was Craig T. His profile looked ordinary. He posted about football, shared articles, and even commented on random memes. He wasn't one of those edgy, anonymous types who hide behind fake names. He ran the group like a moderator, deleting trolls and keeping the chat serious. What made the group different was how fast they got updates. News about cases would show up there before anywhere else. People started joking that Craig must have had connections with the police because he always knew more than reporters did. When news stories broke on TV, he already had photos, names, and timelines posted. At first, it was impressive. The detail in his posts was insane. He'd break down crime scenes with red circles and captions, listing how possible suspects, times, even patterns that news sites hadn't mentioned yet. Everyone respected him. Some people even tagged him for opinions, like he was some kind of expert investigator. Then things started getting strange. One morning, he posted about a case that hadn't even hit the news yet. It was about a missing woman from Manchester. He uploaded photos of her house, her car, and even a shot of what looked like the inside of her kitchen. A broken mug on the floor, police tape barely visible. Everyone in the comments was confused, asking where he got the pictures. He said a friend in law enforcement sent them. People didn't question it much after that. A few days later, the story hit the news for real. The same photos appeared on TV, word for word, just as Craig had posted them days earlier. That's when people started getting suspicious. But instead of backing off, Craig got bolder. He began posting exclusive updates every time a new body turned up. Photos of alleyways, crime scenes, even bodies. Faces blurred, but still graphic. He read captions like, "She was found less than 20 feet from a main road. No forced entry." Same pattern as before. His tone sounded excited, like he enjoyed it. One of the members finally questioned it openly, saying it wasn't right to post pictures like that. Craig deleted the comment instantly and banned the person from the group. He posted again right after, saying people who couldn't handle the truth should leave. I remember scrolling through the comments that night. Some people defended him, saying he was brave for showing what media wouldn't. Others started hinting that maybe he wasn't just getting info from a cop friend. Some said he was probably a journalist. Then came the post that changed everything. It was a Sunday night, and Craig announced he'd be doing a Facebook live stream to discuss a new case in real time. He said it was about a series of killings in the Midlands that police had been quiet about. He even said he might show something shocking during the stream. Hundreds of people joined. His camera came on, showing him sitting in a dark room with blinds shut behind him. He had papers spread across the table like he was doing an investigation. He started talking about patterns, the victims' ages where they'd been found, what police were hiding. He was confident, calm, almost too calm. Then he said something that made my stomach drop. He described a woman who hadn't been identified yet, talking about the way her hands were tied, how the light in the alley hit her body when police found her. The details were too specific, things that weren't public. Someone commented asking how he knew all that, and he ignored it, just kept talking. About 10 minutes into the stream, the comments started turning uneasy. People were typing things like, "How do you know this?" And "Why are your walls the same color as a crime scene photo?" Someone even posted a side-by-side screenshot. Craig's background in the photo he'd shared earlier of the victim's location. The same peeling wallpaper, the same window curtain. That's when the tone changed completely. The chat exploded with messages. Some viewers said they could hear faint noises in the background, muffled crying, a door creaking open. Craig froze for a moment, looked off camera, then smiled slightly before muting the mic. He left it muted for a full minute. People in the comments started calling police live during the stream. We unmuted, he looked pale. There was a loud bang on the door behind him, not from inside the stream, but in real life. The sound was clear through the feed. He turned around, startled, and someone shouted off-screen. Police voices. The camera fell sideways, showing his legs as officers stormed in. You could hear shouting, the sound of handcuffs, and someone reading him his rights. The stream kept going for another minute before it cut off completely. It took hours before anyone knew what had actually happened. The next morning, the news confirmed it. Craig T., the admin of Unsolved Crimes and Theories UK, had been arrested at his home after police traced the location from the live video. Inside, they found evidence linking him to multiple murders across the area. The details were worse than anyone imagined. He hadn't just been posting photos he found online. He'd been taking them himself, right after committing the murders. He created the Facebook group months earlier to brag about his crimes in plain sight, blending in with thousands of people obsessed with true crime. He used the group to feed off reactions, pretending to be an investigator while leaking his own evidence. Police said the timestamps on his posts matched the exact hours of death for several victims. Every time he posted exclusive photos, they'd been taken minutes after the killings. The most disturbing part, his victims were group members. He'd chosen them from the people who commented most, the ones who lived nearby or gave away too much personal info. He even chatted with some of them privately, offering to help research local cases. After his arrest, the group vanished overnight. Facebook deleted it along with his account, but screenshots spread everywhere. People started recognizing their own comments under his posts, realizing they'd been speaking to the killer in real time. I still think about that live stream sometimes, about how calm he looked right before the police broke in. The sound of that knock replayed everywhere online for days. Thousands had been watching without realizing they were witnessing an arrest and the end of a murderer's own confession. Now, whenever I see a true crime group pop up on Facebook, I scroll past it, because you never really know who's behind the posts or what they've done to get the pictures they share. I wasn't planning a huge wedding, just something small, a few friends, a backyard setup. Money was tight, and I figured most of it should go toward food in the venue instead of a dress I'd only wear once. So when I saw Facebook listing for a vintage wedding gown, $70, barely worn, it felt perfect. The post looked real enough. The photo showed a lacy off-white dress hanging from a wardrobe door. It looked elegant but simple, like something you find in an old boutique. The seller's name was Clara's Finds, and the page had dozens of other listings, secondhand stuff like old curtains, dresses, and furniture. I messaged her asking if it was still available. She replied instantly, saying she could post it that same day. She didn't seem weird, just brief. She said she worked nights, so she didn't always respond fast. I sent the payment through Facebook Marketplace, and she sent me a tracking number within an hour. Everything looked normal. It arrived 3 days later. I remember being excited at first. The box was heavier than I expected, wrapped in plain brown paper with no return address. Inside was tissue paper and a faint smell, not bad exactly, just old. The kind of smell you get from something stored for too long. The dress was folded neatly, wrapped in another layer of white paper. When I pulled it out, it was beautiful, but something immediately felt off. The fabric was colder than it should have been, like it had been kept somewhere damp. And there were faint brownish stains near the bottom of the skirt, dried into the lace. I thought maybe it was just rust or old dirt. I held it up to the light. There were more. Faint, irregular spots scattered across the lower part and the hem of the sleeve. At first, I tried not to overthink it. Vintage clothing comes with wear, right? I hung it on the back of my door and figured I'd hand wash it later. But when I did, the water turned pinkish within seconds. That's when I started to feel uneasy. The stains didn't fade. If anything, the water made them spread slightly, like they'd been sitting for years. And the smell got worse. Not musty anymore, but sharp, metallic. I messaged the seller, asking about the stains, but the chat said, "User not found." I tried checking her page, and it was gone. Every listing, Every post. Deleted. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept glancing at the dress hanging by the door. The longer I looked at it, the stranger it felt. There was something unsettling about the way it hung slightly crooked, like it had weight in the wrong places. The next morning, I decided to get rid of it. I stuffed it into the same box and took it to the charity bin near the petrol station. I figured someone else could deal with it. I didn't even want the money back anymore. But that afternoon, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. It was a police officer. They asked if I'd recently purchased a second-hand wedding dress through Facebook. My stomach dropped. I asked why, and they told me not to panic, but said they needed me to confirm some details. They asked about the packaging, the return label, and if I'd kept it. I said no. I'd donated it, and told me to stay home, and that someone would be coming to collect the box if it hadn't been taken yet. 2 officers showed up later that evening. They said the dress was part of an ongoing investigation, and that I'd probably saved them a lot of time by reporting it. I told them I hadn't reported anything. They explained they'd traced the transaction from a fake marketplace profile connected to multiple suspicious sales, all items that had come from police evidence storage. I didn't understand what they meant until one of them said the word stolen. Apparently, someone had broken into a decommissioned evidence storage site outside of town. They'd taken several boxes from old cold cases that were never solved. Items like clothes, jewelry, and other belongings that were supposed to stay in police custody indefinitely. The break-in had gone unnoticed for weeks until some of those items started resurfacing online, including the dress I'd bought. The officer said it matched evidence from a murder investigation nearly 20 years ago. The victim had been found wearing it. My mind went blank. I think I just stood there staring at them, trying to process what they were saying. They said they needed the dress for testing and asked if I could show them where I'd left it. I drove them there, praying it hadn't been picked up yet. The box was still there. They sealed it immediately and put it in the car. Before they left, one of the officers asked if I'd noticed anything unusual when I opened it. I told him about the stains and the smell. He nodded slowly and said it was probably human blood. That night, I couldn't stay in my flat. I packed a bag and went to my sister's place. I kept picturing the dress, how it had felt against my hands, the smell, the stains. The idea that it had belonged to someone who died in it made my skin crawl. A few days later, the police called again. They said the DNA on the dress matched the victim from that old case, a woman who'd been killed on her wedding night. The case had gone cold because the suspect disappeared before they could prove anything. The dress had been sealed in evidence until someone stole it and sold it as vintage. The police eventually caught the seller, a former janitor who used to work at the storage facility. He'd been taking old evidence boxes and selling the contents online under fake names. They said he thought it wouldn't matter since the cases were decades old. When they searched his house, they found hundreds of other items, photos, clothes, personal things from victims. Some of them still had case numbers written on the tags. After that, I deleted Facebook Marketplace from my phone. I couldn't stand the thought of scrolling through listings again, wondering where any of it really came from. Sometimes I still think about that dress, how normal it looked at first, how easily I could have worn it without ever knowing the truth. The image of it floating in that pink-tinted water still flashes in my head sometimes. It's strange how something can look so ordinary and carry something so dark underneath. I never found out who the victim really was. The police said they were reopening the case, but I never saw any updates. Maybe they didn't want it made public, but I always think about how close I came to wearing someone else's story, someone else's tragedy wrapped around me like it was my own. It started on a Tuesday afternoon when I got a Facebook notification that someone had tagged me in a photo. I didn't think much of it. I figured it was one of those random spam tags that show up in giveaways or fake event pages. But when I clicked it, the photo wasn't from a brand page or anything like that. It looked like a normal party picture. A bunch of people standing around in what looked like someone's house, red cups everywhere, low lighting, music speakers in the background. At first, I didn't notice myself in it. But then, near the back of the room, just barely visible, there I was. My face. Blurry, but definitely me. I didn't recognize the place or any of the people. I hadn't been to a party in weeks. I thought maybe it was one of those auto tags Facebook does when it thinks it recognizes a face. But the weird thing was, whoever uploaded it had actually typed my name in the caption. The account that posted was called Miles and Friends. The profile had only one photo and no personal info. The post was set to public. I left a comment asking who they were and why I was tagged. A few hours later, I got tagged again. This time in another photo from the same party, but closer. My face was sharper now, like I was nearer to the camera. The second photo creeped me out. It wasn't just that I was in it. It was that the people in the photo seemed to be interacting normally, laughing and talking, but none of them were looking at me. It was like I wasn't actually part of the scene. That night, I went through my own photos to make sure I hadn't accidentally uploaded anything weird. I hadn't. The next morning, another tag appeared. The same party, same blurry lighting, but now I was in the middle of the shot. I was standing directly behind the main group, like I was about to step forward. I knew something was seriously wrong. I didn't even own the clothes I was wearing in the photo. I showed it to a coworker, and he thought it might be AI generated or edited, but the photos looked real. You could see my posture, my expression, small details like the mole under my eye. It wasn't fake. Later that day, I got a message from the Miles and Friends account. It said, "Glad you're enjoying the party." I froze when I read it. I didn't reply. I clicked the account again, but now it had more posts, all random photos of that same house, that same group of people. I wasn't tagged in all of them, but if you looked closely, you could spot me somewhere in each one. In the background or near the edge of the frame, staring at the camera. That's when I noticed something else. In one of the pictures, a clock was visible on the wall. The time on it matched exactly when I'd been at work the day before. The next morning, I told my manager what was happening. I didn't even know how to explain it properly without sounding insane. She told me to file a report, so I did. I also set my Facebook account to private and untagged myself from every photo. But the tags didn't stop. New ones kept coming from that same account. Different angles, different moments. In one, I was sitting at a desk that looked just like mine at work. You could even see the same coffee mug next to the monitor. My heart dropped when I realized it wasn't just some random photo. It was my actual workspace. I looked up toward the ceiling at the office and started scanning every corner. That's when I noticed it, a small black lens tucked into the vent above my desk. I called the police immediately. They sent officers over to inspect it. They found two cameras, one in the vent and another hidden in the corner of the break room facing the hallway. Both were wireless, streaming to an unknown IP address. The IT team went through the building network and traced strange login activity tied to an unregistered device that had been connected for weeks. It had been transmitting video feed to an external account, the same one used to upload those party photos. The police told us it wasn't a prank. The cameras were real, and the footage had been uploaded online in fragments. Someone had been taking screenshots from the live feed, overlaying them onto old party photos to make it look like I was there. The backgrounds were fake, but the images of me weren't. They pulled the metadata from the pictures. Every single one of them was time-stamped during my working hours. They said whoever did it had physical access to the office at some point. The hidden cameras were cheap, either professional quality with night vision and remote storage. 2 days later, they caught him. He was a contractor who'd worked in the building months before, installing new lighting. He'd hidden the cameras while pretending to fix wiring. When the police searched his apartment, they found multiple hard drives filled with footage from different workplaces around the city. He'd been doing it for years, watching people through hidden cameras, turning them into fake social media stories by editing their faces into other settings. The Facebook page wasn't just about me. It had dozens of other accounts: Ellen's Nights, Jake's Weekend, Office Vibes. All of them filled with edited photos of real people, copied from security footage and spliced into made-up parties, cafes, and homes. It took weeks for them to remove everything. Even after the arrest, the thought of those cameras being above my desk made me feel sick. The police said he wasn't just streaming the footage to Facebook. He'd been selling access to the feeds privately to people who liked watching unsuspecting strangers in their daily lives. The party photos were teasers to draw attention to his pages. I deleted my Facebook after that. I couldn't scroll without thinking about those pictures. Seeing myself standing in a place I'd never been, surrounded by people who didn't exist, staring at the camera like I knew it was there. It was the kind of thing that doesn't leave your head. When the police sent me copies of the photos for evidence, I only looked at one. It was the last one posted before they caught him. It showed a dimly lit room, different from the rest, almost empty. And there I was again, sitting at a table, hands folded, staring straight into the lens. Except this time, my face wasn't mine anymore. He blurted slightly, like he was trying to make me look like someone else. After that, I stopped using social media completely. I even quit that job a month later. I couldn't bring myself to walk into that building knowing someone had watched every move I made for weeks. Sometimes when I'm on my phone, a random ad pops up showing an image I swear I've never seen before. I still wonder if somewhere, on some forgotten account, that fake version of me is still out there, frozen in a photo, staring into a camera I never knew was watching. Night shifts mess with your head. The fluorescent lights, the silence between alarms, the weird rhythm of time where hours feel like days. I'd been doing nights at Street Alders Hospital for about 6 months, and I was starting to lose my sense of routine. You work 12 hours, get home when the sun's rising, sleep through most of the day, and wake up just in time to go back. It becomes your whole life. Around that time, someone in the staff room mentioned a Facebook group for nurses who work nights. It was called Night Shift Nurses UK. A mix of memes, advice, venting, and people sharing stories from different hospitals. I joined during one of my 3 a.m. breaks when I was half asleep and scrolling through my phone. The group seemed normal at first. People posted about caffeine hacks, patient stories, and photos of snacks they brought to stay awake. There were a few recurring posters, mostly regulars who commented on everything. One of them stood out, a guy named Tom R. His profile picture was the standard scrub selfie, mask hanging off his ear. He posted constantly. At first, I thought he was just one of those people who lives online. Then he started posting weird updates. It began with small things like another code blue in Ward 7 tonight. Hope she makes it. The weird part was that I worked in Ward 7, and that exact incident had just happened. A cardiac arrest that started about 5 minutes before his post went up. I brushed it off, thinking he was just in the same hospital and saw it happen too. But the next night, he posted again. Ventilator failure in ICU. Power trip in Section B. I was in ICU that night. The ventilator alarms had gone off moments before. The timing wasn't just close. It was exact. I checked the timestamps. His post was uploaded 2 minutes before the incident happened. By the third post, people in the group started to notice. Someone commented asking how he always knew when things were about to happen. He replied that he had a sixth sense for hospital energy. Most people laughed it off, but a few said it freaked them out. The pattern continued for days. Posts predicting emergencies, machinery faults, even room numbers. One night he wrote, Ward 3 doors are going to lock themselves again. Maintenance still hasn't fixed it. 30 minutes later, the Ward 3 doors jammed, trapping 2 nurses inside for 10 minutes until security arrived. That was the first time anyone officially complained. The group went quiet after that. No one commented for hours. Then late in the morning, the admin posted a long message saying they were removing fake accounts. When I checked, Tom's profile was still there. I tried messaging him privately to ask which hospital he worked at. He never answered. The message showed seen, but no reply. The next night, he posted again. Watch Ward 9 tonight. Something's off. I didn't work that ward, but later in the shift, news spread that Ward 9 had a fire alarm malfunction that caused a false evacuation. His timing was perfect again. After that, people stopped thinking it was coincidence. Comments started flooding his posts. Are you in maintenance? How do you know all this? This isn't funny. He didn't reply to any of them, but he kept posting, every single night. A few days later, something happened that made everyone panic. Around 2 a.m., he posted, lockdown coming. Doors will seal in 5 minutes. 5 minutes later, the hospital's internal doors locked simultaneously. All security access points froze. Staff were trapped between wards, patients stranded mid-transfer, and alarms went off everywhere. Security tried to override the system, but it was manual lock control. The system wasn't responding to central commands. A lockdown lasted nearly 15 minutes before everything rebooted and the doors reopened. Everyone assumed it was a glitch until one of the engineers said the system had been accessed remotely. I didn't sleep when I got home that morning. I kept thinking about his post. I checked the group again, and it was gone. Deleted completely, but his account was still active. It had changed its name from Tom R. to Night Admin. That's when the police got involved. Someone had forwarded screenshots to the hospital security team, and they'd passed it to it and law enforcement. They traced the account's activity and found something even stranger. The posts weren't coming from an outside IP. They were coming from inside the hospital. The location data matched the basement network, the old maintenance section that hadn't been used in years. It was technically restricted, but the signal was pinging from there every night around the same time the posts went up. One night, while most of us were working, police arrived quietly with hospital security. They didn't tell anyone what was happening, just that they were investigating a potential data breach. We later found out they were tracing the live activity from that same account. Around 3 a.m., the night admin account posted again. Keep your eyes on Ward 2. Lights out. At that exact moment, the lights in Ward 2 cut off. The police followed the signal directly to the basement. They broke open the door and found a small setup in an old control room. A folding chair, several monitors, wires running into the wall, and a laptop showing live feeds of different wards. Cameras hidden in corners, vents, even equipment panels. He'd been watching us for months. The man sitting in the chair was still logged into Facebook. It was night admin. He wasn't a nurse. He wasn't even an employee anymore. He was a former hospital security technician who'd been fired 2 years earlier for tampering with access systems. Somehow, he'd never returned his clearance card. He'd been living in the basement, surviving off vending machine snacks and hospital food waste, tapping into the internal network and controlling the door systems manually. The police said he'd installed his own cameras long before he was fired, connecting them to his private server. He watched shifts in real time and post to the Facebook group for attention, playing God from the basement. The reason he predicted incidents was because he caused most of them himself. The ventilator failures, the locked doors, the alarms. He'd sit underground watching chaos unfold, posting about it like a spectator. When they caught him, he didn't fight back. He just stared at the screens. They took him away that night, and a hospital ran full system sweeps afterward. They found more cameras in patient rooms, staff corridors, even inside supply closets. After that, the hospital banned personal devices from wards and deleted the entire night shift nurses group. Some of us still talk about it during breaks. How long he'd been down there, how easily he'd watched everything. Sometimes, when I'm alone on shift at night and the lights flicker, I still think about that old control room, the smell of the basement, the quiet hum of the monitors, and how somewhere under our feet he sat for months, watching us all through the screens, posting in that group like he was one of us. I needed a new phone, but didn't have the money for anything fancy. Mine had been glitching for months, shutting off randomly, freezing during calls, all that. So I went on Facebook Marketplace to find something cheap that would just get the job done. There was this listing for a used iPhone, good condition, only $150. The seller's name was Aaron P., and his profile looked pretty normal, a few family photos, some shared memes, nothing weird. He said he was upgrading and just wanted to sell his old one quick. The meetup was in a Tesco car park, middle of the day, so it didn't seem sketchy. The phone looked fine. It was clean, screen had barely any scratches, and it turned on right away. He even showed me it worked with Wi-Fi, no passcode needed. I paid cash, took it home, and thought I'd scored a good deal. When I got home, I factory reset it just to be safe, then set it up under my own name. Everything seemed normal. I used it that night, logged into my apps, transferred my contacts. It ran smooth, battery life was decent. Nothing unusual. But the next morning, things felt strange. I woke up to messenger notifications, but I hadn't logged into Facebook yet. I figured maybe it was leftover data syncing from before the reset, so I ignored it. Then another one came through, and another. When I opened Messenger, it didn't ask me to log in. It just opened straight into an account already signed in, not mine. The chat list was full. Dozens of conversations. All with names I didn't recognize, and every single one of them was active. I could see the little typing bubbles, people sending photos, locations, voice notes. I thought maybe it was some scammer chat, but then I saw one message pop up at the top that said, "Drop confirmed at 14:20. Same alley as before." Then another one followed it seconds later. "Cameras are blind for 10 minutes. Move fast." I froze. The timestamps were current. Literally the same minute I was looking. I scrolled up and realized all of them were about different things. Meetups, car plates, coded phrases that made no sense. But the weirdest part was that they were all tagged with map coordinates at the top of each chat. I clicked one of them, and it opened straight into maps. The location was a few streets away from my flat. That's when it clicked that these weren't old messages. They were live. Someone was using this account to coordinate something in real time, and for whatever reason, I was still getting every notification. I turned off Wi-Fi, thinking that would disconnect it. It didn't. Messages kept rolling in. I tried logging out, but it just froze. Every time I reopened the app, it would refresh with more chats. Then the phone started vibrating nonstop. New message. Surveillance phone not responding. Check the tracker. The vibration stopped suddenly and my screen flashed. It switched automatically to the camera app, front-facing, like someone had remotely activated it. I panicked and turned the whole thing off. I threw it on the bed and just stared at it, debating whether to smash it or take it somewhere. After a few minutes, curiosity got the better of me. I turned it back on, but the second it powered up, Messenger lit up again. This time the messages weren't coded. The top one said, "Why is the feed coming from a different address?" I didn't even touch it, just watched as another message appeared seconds later. "You sold it, didn't you?" Then, "We're tracing it now." That's when I decided to call the police. I didn't even know how to explain it properly. I just said I'd bought a used phone and that there were messages on it about crimes happening in real time. The operator transferred me to a different line, and I ended up talking to someone who told me to stay where I was and not touch the phone. Within an hour, 2 unmarked cars showed up outside my building. They came straight to my flat, no hesitation. One of them took the phone carefully, like it was evidence. They asked me where I got it, what the seller looked like, and whether I'd seen anything unusual before or during the sale. Turns out the phone didn't belong to a random guy named Aaron. It was registered to an undercover officer who'd gone missing 3 weeks earlier. The account I'd seen on Messenger was part of a live sting operation targeting a trafficking network. The chats I was seeing weren't texts. They were real-time logs between field officers and handlers, sent through an encrypted system disguised as Messenger. When the undercover cop went missing, his phone's signal disappeared. They thought he'd been compromised or the device had been destroyed. But apparently the people he was investigating had stolen it, wiped the external data, and resold it to get rid of the evidence. The reason I was still seeing messages was because the account wasn't fully logged out from the internal network, something about it being mirrored for live operations. By activating it again, I'd accidentally reconnected the phone to their system, making it look like the missing officer was back online. And that triggered the sting prematurely. The police explained that my phone lighting up with those notifications had set off alerts across the entire task force. They thought the missing officer had reappeared in my location, which is why the messages I saw turned frantic. Surveillance phone not responding. Check the tracker. They were trying to figure out who had it and why it was pinging from my postcode. They used my phone to trace the seller's profile, but of course it was fake. The account had been created 3 days before the sale. The photo wasn't even the same man who sold it to me, probably a burner identity. The only thing real was the meeting location, which they said matched CCTV footage from another transaction the same group had made. They've been selling stolen electronics through Marketplace to launder money and erase evidence. I had to give a statement and hand over my Facebook messages too, just to prove I hadn't been involved. They told me I did the right thing by calling, but I couldn't stop thinking about what could have happened if I hadn't. Later that night, one of the officers called me to say they tracked down a storage unit linked to the case using the data from the phone. Inside, they found multiple devices, fake IDs, and the car the missing officer had last been seen in. I don't know if they ever found him. They never said. I deleted Facebook a few days later. I couldn't even look at the Marketplace tab without feeling sick. I thought I was buying a cheap phone, but I basically plugged myself into an active criminal network. Sometimes I still think about those messages. The short direct ones that came in before I turned the phone off. We're tracing it now. Whoever sent that, they weren't police. They were the people the cop had been after. And they know exactly who bought their phone. It started one morning while I was getting ready for work. I was scrolling through Facebook half awake, brushing my hair with one hand and holding my phone in the other, just doing my usual morning routine of checking notifications. You know how Facebook throws those memories at you first thing? Posts from years ago, old photos, random status updates you forgot about. One popped up from exactly a year ago. It was a photo of my bedroom. At first, I thought maybe I'd uploaded it myself at some point, but I never post pictures of my room. The photo showed my bed, unmade, my blanket half off, and sunlight coming through the blinds in that way it does in the early morning. But what made my stomach drop was the angle. It was taken from above, like from the ceiling corner. The caption said nothing, just the date 1 year ago today. I scrolled down, checking if it linked to another post, but there wasn't anything. It didn't even show who uploaded it originally. It just sat there as if I posted myself. I thought maybe it was some weird glitch, like when Facebook mixes up old photos, but then another one showed up underneath it. My car, parked outside the house. It was the exact same car, same little dent on the left side, but it looked recent. Too recent. The leaves on the pavement looked like they did now, not a year ago. My hands went cold. I clicked the image and zoomed in. You could see my reflection faintly in the window standing at my front door. I read it twice, thinking maybe I was just imagining it, but there I was. And then there was a third photo, my dog, sleeping on the couch, curled up in her usual spot by the window. It looked so normal. Except again, I'd never taken that photo. The timestamp said it was posted last year, but the blanket she was lying on was the one I'd only bought a few months ago. That's when it stopped feeling like a glitch. I checked my uploads. Nothing. No sign of those photos anywhere on my profile. I scrolled back through my camera roll. Nothing there either. They weren't on my phone. They weren't anywhere. I started to think maybe someone hacked my account, uploaded random photos, and deleted them again. But how would they have those exact pictures? My bedroom, my car, my dog. It made no sense. I locked my account, changed the password, turned on two-factor authentication, the usual stuff. Then I shut off the app and went to work. I tried to forget about it, but all day I couldn't stop thinking about that angle, the one of my room. It was too high up to be from my phone or even from the door. When I got home that night, I went straight to my room and looked around. The corners, the ceiling, the shelves. Nothing seemed off. I even checked behind the curtains under the bed, anywhere a camera could have been hidden. I felt stupid doing it, but I couldn't sleep otherwise. The next morning, more memories appeared. 3 of them. This time, one was my kitchen sink full of dishes. Another was my hallway. The third one stopped my heart. It was me. I was sitting on the couch, watching TV, half turned, holding my phone. A TV glow lit my face. It looked like it was taken from outside the window. I stared at it for so long that my phone screen dimmed out. I called the police that afternoon. I didn't even know what to say at first. I told them someone had been taking pictures inside my house and posting them online under my account. They asked if I had roommates, family, or anyone with a key. I told them no, I lived alone. They said they'd send someone to take a look. When the officer arrived, I showed him the photos on my phone. He took one look and said it looked like they'd been taken from above or outside. He went outside and did a quick sweep of the property, checking for any obvious cameras or weird devices. Nothing. Then he asked if I'd noticed anything strange in the last few weeks. I said no, but I mentioned something that had happened about a month earlier, a low buzzing sound that came from outside my window at night. I thought it was just a neighbor mowing late or a generator or something, but it had stopped whenever I turned my lights on. He asked where the sound came from. I pointed toward the window near my bedroom. He took a look and then walked outside again. A few minutes later, he came back and told me to stay inside. He called for backup. Turns out there was a drone hidden behind my fence, wedged between 2 bushes, half covered in dirt. It wasn't one of those small toy ones either. It had a mounted camera and a transmitter attached to it. The officer said it looked like it had been there for a while, but had been moved recently because the batteries were still warm. When they checked the camera's memory card, it was full of footage. My yard, my bedroom window, my car, my dog, everything. All taken from different angles, sometimes at night, sometimes during the day. The most disturbing part was that some of the clips were live-streamed. The police traced the signal back to a nearby Wi-Fi network, 2 houses down from mine. They went straight there and found the guy. He was living alone too, late 30s, quiet, the kind of neighbor you never really talk to but see around sometimes taking bins out or walking to his car. He had 3 monitors in his living room and shelves lined with drones. They said he'd been streaming people's private lives on social media under fake names, running anonymous pages that sold private view access to followers. My house had been one of his main feeds. That's how the photos ended up in my Facebook memories. He'd hacked into my account and posted them years ago under settings that made them visible only to him. Facebook's algorithm had automatically resurfaced them when the dates matched. He'd been doing it for months, maybe longer, watching me, taking photos, uploading them like collectibles. The police said there were at least 10 other victims on his drives, all from the same street. Some he filmed in their gardens, some through windows. A few had no idea until they got calls like I did. They took everything he owned: drones, hard drives, his computer. He was arrested the same night. I thought I'd feel relieved after that, but I didn't. For weeks, I couldn't sit in my living room without glancing toward the window. Every time my dog barked outside, I'd jump up to check. Even when the police confirmed he was in custody, I couldn't sleep properly. Facebook eventually removed the photos after I sent them copies of the report. They said it shouldn't have happened, but that didn't make it better. Every time that "on this day" notification pops up now, I get anxious to open it. I keep thinking I'll see another photo I never took, some new angle I missed, one that's been sitting there waiting to resurface. It's strange how something as simple as a memory can turn into something like that. Something that shows you just how much of your life someone can watch without you even knowing, and they know exactly who bought their phone. I've always been one of those people who shares missing person posts on Facebook. You know the kind. Blurry photos of someone's face, a caption that says, "Please share," "last seen near the high street," and a desperate tone that makes you want to do something. It always felt like the least I could do, clicking share to help out. That's what started one Wednesday night. I was scrolling half asleep, and a post came up that already had thousands of shares. It showed a young woman, maybe 20, smiling with her dog. The caption said she'd been missing for 2 days. The post mentioned her name, the town over from mine, and said her family was begging for volunteers to search the surrounding woodland. The comment section was flooded, people tagging friends, arguing about the timeline, some even posting supposed sightings. I left a simple comment saying I lived nearby and would keep an eye out. 10 minutes later, I got a Facebook message request. It was from someone named Emily, with a profile photo of an older woman. Her message said she was the girl's aunt, thanking me for commenting and asking if I could help with the local search. She said they were organizing volunteers through Messenger to split into groups. I didn't think twice. I said yes. She sent me a pin location, an empty parking area near an old quarry just outside town, and said that's where one of the search groups was meeting at 9 p.m. She had asked if I had a flashlight and warm clothes. It all sounded completely normal. The thing is, I'd actually been to that quarry before. It was a known spot for hikes and fishing, but the trails were rough and mostly empty after dark. I didn't think much about the timing. I figured missing person searches often happened at night, especially if people were desperate. I grabbed a jacket, flashlight, and some gloves, then drove out there. The sky was dark by the time I got close, and the area looked deserted. The only light came from a single parked van near the edge of the lot. I slowed down, half expecting to see people with torches or reflective jackets. But there was no one else. Just the van, engine off, headlights dim. That's when I got another message. "We're near the entrance to the trail. Come over so we can sign you in." I parked, kept my headlights on, and scanned the area. Still nothing. No movement, no voices. Just the sound of wind moving through the trees. I typed back asking which side of the trail they were on. No reply. A few seconds later, I saw the van door open. A man stepped out, wearing a black hoodie. He didn't have a flashlight, just stood there for a second looking toward my car. Then he started walking slowly in my direction. Every instinct told me to leave. I turned my engine back on and reversed slightly, pretending I was turning around to park better. But the man kept coming. Then, just as I was about to drive off, a police car swung into the lot from the opposite side, lights flashing but no siren. The man froze instantly, then turned and bolted back toward the van. The officers jumped out before he could start it, shouting for him to stop. They dragged him out within seconds. Another car pulled in right after, blocking the exit. I sat there, completely frozen. One of the officers came over and told me to stay in the vehicle. They asked my name and how I had ended up there. I explained the whole thing: the missing person post, the messages, the location. When I mentioned Emily, the supposed aunt, the officer's expression changed completely. He told me to unlock my phone and show the messages. I did, hands shaking, while they took photos of the screen. Then he said something that didn't make sense at first. He said there was no missing person. The post I commented on was fake. The photos were stolen from an American woman's old Instagram account, and the text had been edited to make it look like a new case. It had been circulating for a few days, each version with different relatives messaging people who commented offering to help. It was part of a trap. The group behind it targeted people who volunteered for searches. They'd lure them to isolated places, pretending to be part of the family or search party. Once there, they'd hold them hostage for ransom. Apparently, the police had already been tracking reports in multiple towns. Dozens of people had gotten similar messages. A few even went missing after agreeing to meet relatives. The officers said they'd been monitoring the accounts linked to the same photos, waiting for another bait post to go live. Mine was one of them. The van's driver was part of the operation. When they searched it, they found zip ties, duct tape, and several phones with fake Facebook accounts logged in. I sat in my car while they finished searching the area, still trying to process it. My phone kept vibrating in my hand. New messages from Emily. She was still sending voice notes, pretending to be frantic, saying she couldn't find her niece anywhere. The police took it from me, saying the messages might help them trace the other people involved. I drove home that night without saying a word. I don't think I slept at all. The thought of how easily I'd walked into that situation kept looping through my head. I hadn't even questioned the story. It looked real, felt real. The next day, the fake post was gone, deleted completely. But before it vanished, I checked the comments again. There were thousands. People tagging friends, saying they'd help search, some even posting photos of themselves on their way. I wonder how many of them got messages like mine. The police called me later that week to say they'd arrested 3 others connected to the same group in nearby towns. They'd been using the same strategy for months, setting up fake missing person cases, creating sympathy posts, then messaging volunteers who commented. They'd rent vans or use abandoned buildings near quiet spots to lure them in. It made sense why I used Facebook. Everyone shares those posts without checking anything. It spreads like wildfire, and the more shares it gets, the more victims they find. After that, I deleted my old Facebook account completely. I couldn't look at another missing person post again. The police told me it wasn't the first time something like this had happened, scammers using empathy as bait. But I think what scared me most was how real it all felt, right up until the flashing lights hit that parking lot. Now, whenever I see a post begging for shares, I hesitate, because that night, I wasn't just looking for a stranger, someone else was looking for me. I joined the Facebook Thrift exchange group because everyone in town seemed to be on it. It was one of those local pages where people gave away old clothes, furniture, kids' toys, anything they didn't need. The posts were constant, someone always listing something or thanking someone else for picking up a donation. It felt wholesome, like a community thing that actually worked. The group was called Greenfield Thrift and Swap. It had over 5,000 members, all local. The rules were simple. Post what you're giving away, comment if you want it, arrange a pickup or drop-off. No selling, no arguments, just exchange. I'd been scrolling through it for a week before posting anything. Most of the stuff people gave away was small: books, mugs, old coats. One night, I decided to list a box of clothes I'd cleaned out from my wardrobe. Within minutes, someone commented asking for them. Then one of the admins, a guy named Paul G., replied underneath saying he could help coordinate drop-offs if needed. He said he did that for everyone who struggled with transport. He seemed friendly enough. His profile showed him in a fluorescent vest in some of the photos, like he was volunteering somewhere. I didn't think anything of it. Later that night, I got a message from him directly. He thanked me for joining the group and said he could swing by to pick up the donation box and maybe draw off a few extra items from other members if I was interested. He said it made him happy to help people declutter and get things to those who needed them. It sounded harmless. He asked for my address so he could save me a trip. I hesitated for a second, but figured he was an admin, the kind of person who probably ran things like this all the time. Everyone in the group trusted him. I sent it. He said he'd come by the next day around 2 p.m. The next day came and went. No one showed. I figured he forgot or got busy. That evening, he messaged again saying he had car trouble and could come by the next day instead. I told him not to worry about it. I could just meet someone else in town to give the clothes away. He replied with a thumbs up, then nothing else. That night, I got another message notification from him, but it disappeared before I could open it. It just said, "Message deleted." It bugged me enough that I clicked back onto the Thrift group. When I scrolled through the posts, I noticed something strange. The most recent few all had comments from him. The same thing, copy-pasted. "Message me your address. I'll help drop off your donations." Most of the people actually replied, thanking him for helping. One post even said, "Thanks to Paul for picking up my items yesterday." The weird part was the comment underneath. A woman replied saying he never showed up. That's when I started feeling uneasy. I clicked on his profile again. It looked normal, maybe too normal. Family photos, dog pictures, motivational quotes. But every single one had been uploaded within the last month. No older history, no tags from friends, no comments that looked real. It was late, so I locked my doors and tried not to overthink it. Around 1 a.m., I heard something outside. Not loud, just a car engine idling near the front of the house. I pulled back the curtain a little. There was a dark van parked across the road. The headlights were off, but the shape of it was clear under the streetlight. I stood there watching for a while. After a few minutes, it slowly drove off. The next morning, I was still on edge, so I decided to message one of the other admins from the group, a woman named Lydia. I asked if Paul was actually part of the admin team. She replied almost instantly. She said he'd been added recently, maybe a few weeks ago, and had been doing a great job coordinating. She sounded like she genuinely trusted him. I almost dropped it then, but later that afternoon there was a knock at my door. It wasn't Paul, it was a police officer. He asked if I was part of the Greenfield Thrift and SWAT group. My stomach sank instantly. He said there'd been an incident and asked if I'd spoken to anyone named Paul G in the last few days. I told him everything. The messages, the address, the no-show. He said they'd caught a man attempting to break into a house less than a mile away earlier that morning. When they searched his car, they found a clipboard and several printed sheets with member information from the Thrift group, names, addresses, and notes about which ones lived alone. My address was on that list. The police said he'd been using the Facebook group to collect personal details under the guise of helping with pickups. Once people gave their addresses, he'd schedule drop-offs and then scope out their houses later, usually late at night. They also found boxes of random thrift items in his van, probably stolen from porches or garages. But that wasn't the worst part. They found a hidden camera mounted inside the van, pointed toward the passenger seat. The officer said it looked like he'd been recording people during pickups too. The account he'd used wasn't even his real name. His profile was completely fabricated, built over a few weeks using stock photos and fake posts to look legitimate. The family pictures were taken from another person's page entirely. After the police left, I couldn't stop thinking about that van outside the night before. How long it had been parked there. Whether he'd actually tried the door and backed off when he saw the lights on. That evening, the group exploded with posts about it. The admins removed his profile, and people started commenting that they'd also given him their addresses. One woman said she'd let him inside to collect furniture. Another said he'd asked to see her backyard to check for loading space. It turned out he'd been running the same scam in multiple Facebook groups in nearby towns, joining as a helpful volunteer to build trust. The police believed he'd been using the stolen goods as cover while targeting homes he thought were easy to break into later. The next week, the group changed its rules. No address exchanges in private messages, only public drop-off points in town. But I deleted my account altogether. I couldn't scroll through Facebook anymore without thinking about how easy it had been for him. He didn't even need to hack anyone. All he had to do was ask. Now, anytime someone mentions those local Facebook groups, the ones that seem so harmless, I can't help picturing that list they found in his car. All those names printed neatly in rows. All those people sitting at home, completely unaware their kindness had been cataloged for him, one address at a time. I'd been selling random stuff on Facebook Marketplace for months without any issues. Old headphones, shoes, game controllers, that sort of thing. Most of the time, I'd meet buyers in busy parking lots or petrol stations, quick exchanges, cash in hand. Lately, I've been seeing more stories online about scams and robberies happening during marketplace meets. It got to the point where every time I agreed to meet someone, my mates would joke about me ending up on one of those buyer beware threads. So that's why I decided to live stream it. It wasn't meant to be dramatic or anything, just me being careful. I figured if anything weird happened, I'd have it all recorded. I even posted the link on my own profile with a caption like Marketplace Meet, streaming for safety, and a laughing emoji. The item I was selling that day was a car stereo. Some guy named Jaden messaged me saying he'd been looking for the exact model for his Civic. He sounded polite, offered to meet at a supermarket parking lot near the main road, said he'd bring cash. He even confirmed the model number twice, which made me think he actually knew what he was buying. The plan was simple: 6:30 p.m., public place, broad daylight. When I got there, I parked close to the entrance where the security cameras pointed. I set my phone up on the dash, started the Facebook live, and said a quick intro like I always do. Nothing serious, just me explaining what was happening. A few of my friends joined in the comments joking around. 5 minutes later, the buyer pulled up. He was driving a black sedan, tinted windows, nothing flashy. He parked a few spots away and walked over with his phone in hand. Looked normal enough. Maybe late 20s, jeans and a hoodie. I greeted him, showed him the stereo, and we started talking about installation wires, price, all that stuff. The live chat on my stream kept popping up with my friends commenting random things like "he looks sketchy bro" or "make sure it's real cash." I laughed a bit and went along with it. Everything felt fine. But then, mid-conversation, I noticed something strange. A car parked diagonally across from us with its engine running. Inside were two people just sitting there, both staring in our direction. At first, I thought maybe they were just waiting for someone, but the longer I looked, the weirder it got. They weren't moving, not talking, just watching. The buyer noticed too and kind of side-eyed the car before turning back to me. He looked uneasy for a second, like he recognized them. Before I could ask anything, flashing lights lit up the entire parking lot. 3 police cars came out of nowhere, cutting off both exits. Officers jumped out with guns drawn, shouting for everyone to stop moving. The buyer immediately froze, hands up. I stood there in total shock, the live still streaming the whole thing. My chat exploded with people typing, "What's going on? And is this real?" The police surrounded his car first. One of them yelled something about the vehicle being linked to an ongoing investigation. They ordered me to back up, so I slowly stepped away, hands raised, heart pounding. They searched him on the spot and cuffed him, then opened his car. I could see it clearly from where I stood, the front seat covered in random junk, and something dark stained across the passenger side mat. One of the officers shouted to another to bag it, whatever that meant. That's when one of them approached me. He asked if I was the seller and if I'd been in contact with the man they just arrested. I told him it was just a marketplace deal for a car stereo, nothing else. He took my name and number, then asked if I had any messages or screenshots from our conversation. I told him it was all on Messenger and showed him the chat. He took photos of my phone, then asked if I'd be willing to come down to the station as a witness. Meanwhile, the buyer, Jaden, was sitting in the back of a police car, head down. I caught a glimpse of his face in the rearview mirror. He didn't look angry or scared, just blank. It wasn't until later that I found out what really happened. Apparently, his car had been flagged earlier that day in connection to a double homicide 2 towns over. The vehicle matched CCTV footage from a petrol station robbery where 2 people were killed. The police had been tracking it using license plate recognition cameras across the area. When he pulled into the supermarket lot to meet me, an unmarked unit happened to be nearby and spotted him. They'd been waiting for confirmation before moving in. My livestream gave them that. The video showed the car's plate and location clearly enough that dispatch could confirm it in real time. That's why they swarmed so fast. After everything settled down, the officer told me they'd found more inside his car: blood-stained clothing, a knife wrapped in plastic, and cash matching the robbery amount. They weren't sure yet if he was directly involved or just driving the car after the fact, but either way, I'd just been standing a few feet away from evidence in an active murder case. The crazy part was how normal he'd seemed. He was polite, calm, even smiled when we first met. There was nothing off about him. Nothing that screamed danger. The police asked me to leave my livestream video public for a few days while they reviewed it. The comments section turned into chaos overnight. Thousands of people watching, speculating, sharing clips. News outlets even reached out to use it for reports. My name started popping up in Facebook groups and Reddit threads, like I was some kind of witness in a viral case. By the end of the week, I deleted the whole stream. I couldn't stand seeing my own voice in the background of that chaos, laughing while police were seconds away from an arrest. When they called me for questioning, the detective explained that marketplace meetups had become one of the easiest ways for wanted suspects to move around unnoticed. People assume every transaction is harmless, so it's the perfect cover: short meetings, quick cash, random locations. That car had been listed under a fake name, and Jaden wasn't his real one either. They said my live stream had helped them confirm his location faster than any tracker could have. Still, it didn't make it any easier to process. It's weird. I started streaming to feel safe. I thought being live meant nothing could happen to me. But now, whenever I open Facebook, all I can think about is how close I was to something much worse. The whole thing ended with a court summons. I had to testify briefly, confirming the messages and identifying him as the buyer. The case made the local news for weeks. The stream was mentioned in every article. Facebook Marketplace live leads to arrest. People kept tagging me in it like it was something to be proud of. But there's nothing cool about watching your own safety precaution turn into evidence. It's been months since then, and I still can't sell anything online. I don't trust it anymore. Not the people, not the profiles, not even the system that caught him. Because if someone like that could blend in so easily, you never really know who's waiting on the other side of a message.